Once upon a time, there was a merchant who had a beautiful wife who he loved with all his heart. Together, they had a daughter and named her Ella. Both parents adored their only child and spent as much time as possible with her. One day, Ella's mother became very sick and died. Her father was so sad and upset, he started to travel more and more, leaving poor Ella to deal with the loss of her mother alone. When her father finally returned home, he brought with him a new wife. The stepmother was a regal woman. She had 2 daughters about the same age as Ella, named Rosella and Anastasia. At first, everything was good. The girls got along, and the stepmother included Ella in their outings. That is, until the day her father had to leave again on business. He no sooner left Ella with her new family, and things started to change. The stepmother started to forget to bring Ella on outings and would snap at her if she said anything to remind them. Then Drusilla and Anastasia started whispering behind her back. All this continued to happen more and more. To Ella, it seemed like her father would never come home again. Finally, her father returned home, but with bad news. He had lost most of their money a while away, and expenses had to be cut. The first thing was to let the cook and the maids go because they could no longer afford to pay them. This angered the stepmother because she was used to a life of luxury. Wandering around the house trying to figure out how to fix this problem, she came upon the kitchen. There she saw Ella preparing a meal for the family since there was nobody else to do it. This gave Ella's stepmother an idea. She first went to her daughters and explained that they were out of money and could no longer live in luxury like they had been. The girls started to cry. "Oh, Mother, is there nothing we can do to fix this? There has to be something." Turning away from the girls like she was thinking, she sighed. "Well, I think I might know a way to continue to look like we have money. We could always have Ella take over caring for the house, do the cooking and the cleaning. I don't know, though. I'm pretty sure I could convince your stepfather to allow this, but the thing is, are you girls okay with it? I know you started to get along well with Ella," she said, chuckling to herself as she turned away. "Of course we can, Mother. We only pretend to like Ella," answered Drusilla and Anastasia. Slowly turning back to her girls, she embraced them with a sly smile. "Now, all I have to do is convince her father." The stepmother went to the office where the merchant was sitting, drunk. She quickly convinced him to allow Ella to do the chores from now on. She went as far as to tell him that Ella had become a very spoilt child while he was away and that she treated them badly. This convinced him further. The merchant was to the point that he was always drunk and really didn't care to be around his own daughter anymore because the older she got, the more and more she looked like her mother, and that was just too much for him to bear. From then on, things really turned for the worse for Ella. The stepmother and sisters became more arrogant and nastier towards her, and to top it off, her own father was right there with them. It seemed like he just didn't care about her anymore. Her bedroom and all her clothes were taken from her. At night, she was so exhausted from taking care of everything for her family, she would sit down by the fireplace and fall asleep. The stepmother found her like this one day and remarked how dirty she looked most of the time. She started to call her Cinderella. The stepsisters and father followed suit. It was as if she was all alone in this world, abandoned by everyone now unless it had to do with chores. Every night before bed, Cinderella would go out to the garden and sit and cry by her mother's favorite tree before returning to the kitchen and falling asleep by the fire. Then it happened. Ella's father finally died, leaving Ella an orphan. Now she was truly alone without anyone to care about what happened to her. Resigning to the fact that now she will have to live her life as a servant, Ella moved on and did the best job she could for her stepmother and sisters. Every morning she would bring them breakfast in bed at different times. After serving them breakfast, she would gather the laundry and take it down and begin washing. While the clothes were hanging to dry, Ella would then go do her favorite thing, take care of the animals. Sometimes she would linger a little longer than she was supposed to and would get yelled at because the chores still needed done. After caring for the animals, she would help her stepsisters get dressed for the day and remove their dishes from breakfast. Ella would then clean all the dishes and scrub the floors, followed by preparing dinner and cutting firewood. Several years went by like this until one day there was a knock on the door. Opening it, Ella saw a messenger from the palace. She took the letter and quickly read it herself. Then, as quickly as possible, she ran up the stairs to her stepmother's room and knocked excitedly on the door. "What do you want? You know it's my nap time," yelled the stepmother in anger. "I have a message from the palace," answered Cinderella, slowly cracking the door. "Well, don't just stand there like a nitwit. Come in and bring it to me." Opening the door the rest of the way, Cinderella walked over to the bed and handed the letter over. The stepmother took it and read it, breaking out into the biggest smile ever. "Girls, come quickly here at once!" she screamed. Drizella and Anastasia came running in to see what was the matter with their mother. Climbing out of bed, the stepmother flapped the letter in the air, saying, "We have the answers to our prayers right here. It seems the prince still has not found a bride, so the king is giving a ball. All eligible ladies in the kingdom are to attend. The king is hoping the prince will pick a bride." Jumping up and down in excitement, "Oh, Mother, maybe he'll pick me for a wife," the girls screamed in unison. Cinderella just stood back and watched as they all made fools of themselves. Finally, when they settled down, Cinderella came forward. "It says all eligible ladies are to attend. I am eligible. May I go too, stepmother, please?" Dead silence filled the room. Turning to look at Cinderella in disgust, the stepmother said, "I don't know. You have a lot of chores you must finish, and my girls will need your help preparing themselves. And besides, you don't have anything to wear, do you?" Hanging her head, Cinderella said, "If I can find something to wear, and I get everything finished, may I please go to—" "It does say all eligible ladies." "I guess you may, if you finish all of your chores and you help us get ready," said the stepmother. "But Mother, she's just a servant. She can't go," said Drizella. "Yeah, and besides, she doesn't have anything to wear. It'll make a fool of us. Seeing our servant dressed in rags and dirty too, the prince will have nothing to do with us," whined Anastasia. "That is enough, girls. If you would have listened to me, I said if she got everything done," scolded the stepmother. "Oh, okay," said the girls with sly smiles on their face as they realized what she said. Cinderella was not paying attention to what they were saying after she was told yes to be able to go. "Okay, my girls, let's get ready. We don't have very long," the stepmother, turning to Cinderella, said. "And you, get busy with your chores if you're planning to go. You better be ready by 7 o'clock tonight. If you're not at the door when we leave, you will not be going. Understand?" As if waking from a dream, Cinderella said, "Yes, stepmother," and wandered slowly out the door to finish her chores. It seemed like every time Cinderella got working on her chores, one of them would cry out and need something. "Cinderella!" one would cry down the stairs. "I need you to help me with my dress." "Cinderella, I need you to help me with my jewelry now. Hurry, girl," said the other. This went on and on. Cinderella thought she would never get everything done in time, not to mention find a suitable dress to wear. Finally, getting a break, she went to the attic where her mother's old things were stored. Digging through it, she quickly came across a beautiful pink gown with pearls. Taking it back to the kitchen, she hid it in a cabinet until she was ready for it and went about finishing up her chores. Finally done early, Cinderella sat down by the fireplace to catch her breath and recoup. Things were quiet right now, and that's when the stepmother came in and saw her just sitting there. "Well, it looks like we have not kept you busy enough," she said, taking a handful of beans from the bowl on the table, throwing them into the ash. "There, that should keep you busy. You must pick up every single bean out of the ashes or you will not be able to go with us," she said haughtily, turning and leaving the kitchen. Cinderella started crying. There was no way she was going to be able to gather all those beans up and clean and dress herself in time to leave. Then, suddenly, the window flew open, and several birds flew in and started picking up the beans and dropping them beside Cinderella. In no time at all, every single one of those beans had been picked up, and Cinderella was able to go get cleaned up and dressed. Finally, she was ready to leave just in time, and Cinderella headed out the kitchen door to meet at the front door when her stepmother and sisters came in. Stopping suddenly in their tracks, they stood there in awe of Cinderella. She was the most beautiful girl they've ever seen. Jealousy took over, and the sisters ran to Cinderella and started ripping her beautiful gown to shreds, crying out, "This is my sash! I was looking for it! You stole it!" said Drusilla. "You are a thief! These are my pearls! I was wondering where they were! Give them back!" screamed Anastasia. Both girls continued to assault Cinderella until their stepmother called a stop to it. "Enough, girls! There is no need to act like this. It is not very ladylike. Now come on, or we will be late." Turning, they all left, and Cinderella yelled out to them, "Those were my mother's, not yours." Cinderella ran crying out the kitchen back door and into the garden to her mother's favorite tree. She flung herself on the ground and cried until she fell asleep right there on the ground, when suddenly, out of nowhere, there was these loud flapping noises. Waking up, Cinderella looked up and saw a flock of birds carrying the most gorgeous gown that seemed to glow. They flew to just above her head and let it float down to her. It seemed to just float down till she was dressed in it. Looking down, Cinderella could not believe her eyes. Where did this come from, she thought, when out of the corner of her eye she saw 2 dogs trotting over carrying shoes. Taking it from their mouths, she noticed that they were not just regular slippers, but glass slippers. Sliding them on her bare feet and twirling around, she heard a dreamy voice say, "Now you may attend the ball, daughter. Go and enjoy yourself and dance as much as you wish, but be home before midnight. If you do not, the dress will turn back to rags and a crow will come and pluck your eyes out. This is the cost of the magic. Obey and everything will be fine." Then a golden carriage pulled up. Cinderella got in and went off towards the palace. Arriving late to the ball, Cinderella entered without being announced, which helped hide her identity. She didn't want her stepmother and sisters to know she was there. Walking around, she suddenly came upon them, but they did not recognize her and actually came over and spoke with her for a while. The stepsisters seemed in awe of her, and when they asked her name, before she could respond, the prince came up offering his hand. Cinderella took his hand and they danced. After dancing a while, he took her out into the garden for some fresh air. Walking and talking together, it was like they've known each other all their lives. When the prince walked back inside to get him some drinks, he was cornered by the stepsisters. "Who is she?" Drusilla asked. "Is she the one you will marry?" asked Anastasia. "I don't know. Why do you want to know? Is it any of your business?" said the prince annoyingly as he walked away. This time, however, on his way back, the stepmother stopped him. "Your Highness, I see you have met a beautiful young lady, and I am happy for you. Will you walk with me a bit? I have something I wish to show you." Out of curiosity, the prince followed the stepmother until they were away from prying eyes. Putting on her most seductive smile, the stepmother turned and looked at the prince and took him by the hand, moving closer. "Do you really want a young, unexperienced girl to be your wife? Just imagine how boring that would be. It would be better for you and the kingdom if you had a slightly older woman with more experience." she said, now standing so close to the prince that their lips were almost touching. He could not move. It was like he was in a trance. Growing concerned that the prince forgot about her, Cinderella wandered back into the ballroom, but didn't see the prince anywhere. That is when she noticed the time. "Oh, it is like 15 minutes until midnight. I have to go," she said to herself. Turning and heading quickly towards the door, she spotted the prince with her stepmother, kissing him. "What is this?" she cried, tears now running down her face. This seemed to pull the prince out of whatever trance he had been in, and when he saw her, he pushed his stepmother aside and started towards her. Cinderella turned and quickly ran out the door, down the steps towards the carriage. On the way down the steps, one of her slippers fell off. She stopped to pick it up and saw that she only had a couple minutes to get out of there, and so she left. Reaching the golden carriage, she climbed out and took off as fast as she could towards home. On the way home, her dress began changing back to rags, and the carriage started to just disappear while she was in it. At the first stroke of midnight, the carriage completely disappeared, and Cinderella found herself sitting on the ground. Quickly getting up, she noticed that she was right in front of her home. Running, she entered the back kitchen door at the last stroke of midnight. "Wow, that was close," she said to herself, sitting down by the fireplace, falling asleep. The next day, Cinderella heard all about the beautiful, mysterious girl who had caught the full attention of the prince. She moped around doing her chores, listening to their stories, but also remembering what she saw on her way out. Later that day, there was a knock on the door. The stepmother answered it. Rushing back inside, she called, "Drusilla! Anastasia! Come here quickly!" Running down the stairs, they froze at the bottom at the sight. There, in their house, was the prince. "The prince has come looking for the mysterious woman. He says that whoever the slipper fits, he will marry. Girls, come. I know it must fit one of you." Taking the shoe from the footman, Drusilla and the sisters walked into the next room to try on the slipper. Drusilla went first. Sitting down on the chair, she took the shoe and tried to put her foot in it, but it would not go. "Mother, it doesn't fit. Look, how am I ever to get my large foot into such a dainty slipper?" "Well, I guess you'll just have to cut off your toes. If you do that, it will fit. Besides, you won't need to walk if you marry the prince," she said, turning to take a knife off the table behind her. Seeing the reasoning behind what her mother said, Drusilla took the knife and hacked off her toes and quickly shoved her foot into the slipper. With the help of her mother and her sister, Drusilla returned to the other room where the prince was and showed him the shoe did fit. The prince took Drusilla by the hand and escorted her to his carriage. While helping her up, he noticed there was blood on the shoe. "What happened to your foot, my dear? There is blood all over it." Glancing down at her foot, she said, "I do not know." The prince lifted the dress to take a closer look. He removed the slipper and saw her toes were recently cut off. "This slipper does not belong to you. Guards, come take her to the gallows immediately. She will be hanged for lying to me." Grabbing Drusilla, they dragged her away. The prince went back inside and told the stepmother what happened. "No, really? She did that to her own foot? I am so sorry, Your Highness. I did not know. Please forgive us," begged the stepmother. "Very well, let the other girl try it on. If it fits her, I will marry her," demanded the prince. Again, the stepmother took the slipper with the blood in the toes from the footman and went to Anastasia in the next room. Sitting down in the same chair and taking the shoe, she tried and tried, but the slipper would not go on her foot. "Here, take the knife and cut off your heel. The shoe will fit then," said the stepmother. Too scared not to listen to her mother, she took the knife and cut off her heel. Walking on her toes, Anastasia followed her mother back to the prince. "See, it fits perfectly. I told you it would fit one of my girls." Looking down, the prince said, "Wait, there is blood on the slipper." "No, Your Highness, that is my sister's blood. Look, it's in the toe area. I will show you my toes if you would like, said Anastasia. It's perfectly fine. I see what you mean. Come, dear, let us be off to the palace. Taking her hand, they walked to the carriage. Helping Anastasia up into the carriage, the prince again saw blood on the shoe, but it was not in the toe area. What is this? There is blood everywhere now. There was not that much blood in the house. Show me your foot at once, demanded the prince. Anastasia slid the shoe off, grimacing in pain. Seeing that this time the heel had been cut off, he called to the guards again. Take this one too. She may join her sister in the gallows and share the same fate. They will both be hanged on my wedding day. Marching back inside while the guards dragged Anastasia to be with her sister, the prince slammed the door behind him. My lady, what is the meaning of this nonsense? Both of your daughters are headed to the gallows for their deeds of trying to trick me. I will not be fooled again. Tell me, did you do this to them? Commanded the prince. Falling to her knees before the prince, the stepmother cried, No, your highness, I would never harm my children. I don't know what's gotten into them. Please, please forgive me. Cinderella was standing in the corner of the room the entire time and witnessed everything. She finally stepped out and took the other slipper from behind her. Your highness, I believe the shoe will fit me. Look, I have the matching one. Just noticing her, the prince turned and looked. Cinderella slipped both shoes on her feet, and to the delight of the prince, they both fit perfectly. He picked up Cinderella and carried her to the waiting carriage. The prince placed her on the seat and climbed in next to her, and they quickly headed for the palace. The next day, the wedding took place. The gallows were placed for the stepsisters hanging after the ceremony. Walking down the aisle with Cinderella was the stepmother. As they were walking, two crows flew out of nowhere and came down and pecked out the stepmother's eyes, leaving her blind. Cinderella continued to walk down the aisle and marry her prince. Once the ceremonies were over, the prince gave the command for the hanging to begin. The whole time, Cinderella kept remembering the scene at the ball where the prince was kissing her stepmother. Finally, the festivities were over, and the happy couple went to go to one of the prince's estates to enjoy some alone time. While there, they spent their time getting to know each other better. They played games, enjoyed picnics along the river, and went hunting together. One night, Cinderella woke up and went for a drink of water. On her way to the kitchen, she heard some giggling and went to see what was happening at that time of night. Upon entering the room, she saw her husband, the prince, with a servant girl in his arms, and she fled back to her room crying. Early the next morning, upon waking, she heard the same dreamy voice she heard in the garden before the ball. Don't worry about anything, daughter. I will handle this. He will never hurt you again, said the voice. Cinderella got up and readied herself for a day of hunting with her husband. Even though she couldn't stop thinking of what she saw the night before, Cinderella pulled herself together and pretended nothing was wrong. The prince and Cinderella enjoyed a successful day of hunting and were headed home at sunset. I bet my horse is faster than yours, said Cinderella teasingly, and she took off. The prince quickly followed. About halfway back, something spooked the prince's horse, and he fell off, hitting his head on a large rock. Normally, a fall would not have killed him, but with him hitting his head like he did, he died quickly. Scared she would be the blame, she went back to check on him and heard that dreamy voice again. See, my darling daughter, I will always be there for you. You will never be alone. I love you. Now enjoy the life you deserve. That was the last time Cinderella heard the voice. When she returned to the palace with the news, no one blamed her. She continued to live out her days in peace and happiness, doing whatever she pleased, just like her mother always wanted.